Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that is far more complex and far more important than it first appears. Let's talk about what it means when a woman ignores you. Now, at first glance, it's tempting to see this as some form of rejection or even cruelty. But that's a shallow interpretation, and it says more about your psychological immaturity than about the woman in question. You must understand this first. Attention is not free, and it's certainly not meaningless. Attention is a form of valuation, and human beings, especially women, do not give it randomly. It is filtered through thousands of years of evolutionary conditioning, shaped by the most ancient and powerful biological imperatives. A woman's attention is not simply a glance. It is not a throwaway interaction. It is a subconscious evaluation, a psychological calculation embedded in biology, and it means something. Always. Women are biologically wired to detect competence, direction, stability, strength, and subtlety, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And when she withdraws her attention, she is not punishing you, she is observing. She is waiting for proof of structure, not noise. We live in a world flooded with desperate signals, men grasping, men demanding attention without earning it, men who believe visibility alone entitles them to recognition. That is not how nature works. That is not how women work. That is not how value is determined in any meaningful system. You must grasp that attention, especially from women, is not a right, it's a reward. A reward for presence, a reward for direction, a reward for self-mastery, restraint, and dignity under pressure. It is not given to those who beg for it. It is magnetically drawn to those who embody it. She is not just seeing you, she is scanning you for truth, for posture, for coherence, for mission. Not just what you say, but how you carry the unbearable burden of your own suffering without collapsing into resentment. That is what she sees before she speaks. That is what she weighs before she watches. Her biology does not lie. It is more honest than your words, more ancient than your strategies, more ruthless than your charm. And that's why you don't get to skip the work. You don't get to bypass the pain. You don't get to demand her gaze without earning the gravity that warrants it. Attention has cost. Real attention has sacrifice behind it. Her attention is not a product of your need, but of your transformation. If you are invisible, it may not be because she is cruel. It may be because you have not yet formed into someone visible on the levels that matter. She's not looking for perfection. She is looking for orientation. Can you hold a line? Can you aim? Can you take responsibility for your chaos and transmute it into order, not just for yourself, but for something greater than yourself? That is what arrests her gaze. This is not manipulation, this is biology. This is the ancient game of meaning played out in every generation. The deep subconscious dialogue between chaos and order, strength and vulnerability, competence and weakness. And attention is the scoreboard. Man who understands this never asks for attention. He commands it without speaking. He has built himself into someone who does not flinch, does not flounder, does not whine. He has seen what he is capable of, both in destruction and discipline, and has chosen the harder path. A woman's attention is a mirror. It reflects not just who you are, but what you prioritize. She sees what you worship by how you walk. She sees what you tolerate by what you speak. She sees what you fear by what you avoid. She does not need to ask. She already knows. If she ignores you, it may not be rejection. It may be clarity. The clarity of unmet potential. The clarity of untapped discipline. The clarity that you are still hiding behind comfort, hoping the world will notice you while you do nothing worth noticing. Attention is relational. It flows where value accumulates. She is not obligated to meet your emotional void with comfort. She is wired to seek direction, and when it's missing, her attention retreats, not as punishment, but as truth. Every moment you waste in complaint is a moment you could have used to build. Every time you label her indifference as cruelty, you rob yourself of the lesson. Every excuse you make only delays your evolution. And evolution doesn't wait. If her attention feels expensive, it's because it is. If you're not ready to pay the price, in sweat, in thought, in action, in transformation, then you're not ready to receive what that attention represents. She doesn't want the performance of value. She wants the embodiment of it. And embodiment cannot be faked, not sustainably, not under pressure, not across time. And that is why some men rise and others remain invisible. Your task is not to chase her attention. Your task is to become undeniable, not loud, not arrogant, but undeniably grounded in who you are, why you're here, and what you're willing to become in the service of something higher than yourself. When you walk into a room, your nervous system speaks louder than your voice. Your posture tells your story. Your gaze betrays your certainty or your collapse. And women, often unconsciously, read that faster than you do. They must. Evolution demanded it. You are not owed attention because you exist. You are granted attention when your existence becomes meaningful to others, when you have oriented yourself toward the good and suffered long enough to speak the truth without flinching. She's not looking for your words, she's listening for your coherence. Does your life make sense? Are your actions integrated? Is your ambition guided by purpose, or is it a disguise for pain? Her attention will answer that question before you ever ask it. We live in an age where distraction is easy, but deep attention is rare. And when a woman gives you her attention, truly gives it, she is offering you her mind. That is sacred. And if she withholds it, she is waiting for something sacred in return. So if you find yourself ignored, don't spiral into resentment. Don't collapse into victimhood. Instead, let that silence be a sacred signal, a call to action. Not because you are unworthy, but because you are unfinished. Her attention is not the beginning of your value, it is the reflection of it. And when you finally become someone whose presence changes a room, whose discipline speaks louder than ego, and whose mission transcends his need, her gaze will follow. Not out of pity, not out of pressure, but because truth is magnetic. And in that moment, you'll realize the point was never to get attention. The point was to become someone worthy of it. When a woman withdraws, it is often the mirror that shatters the illusion you have built around yourself. The male ego, fragile and inflated, reacts not with reflection, but with projection. She is not cruel, she is not manipulative. She is simply not responding. And in that silence, your demons speak louder than her voice ever could. The tendency to project arises not from her actions, but from your unexamined wounds. You do not see her, you see the story you've written onto her. She becomes the villain, the cold one, the problem. But the real problem is the story you're desperate to believe because it protects you from confronting the truth about your own inadequacy. And fear irrelevance more than pain. And when they sense they are being ignored, that fear explodes. But rather than facing that fear with courage, they wrap it in blame, convincing themselves that her silence is rejection, her distance is disdain, her independence is an insult. In reality, she may simply be choosing herself, and that terrifies you. The ego clings to recognition, to validation, to being seen as enough. And when that recognition isn't given, the ego doesn't ask why, it demands to be fed, so it creates an enemy. And often the enemy becomes the very woman who once offered warmth but now offers only distance. Projection is the coward's replacement for introspection. It is easier to imagine her as heartless than it is to acknowledge the cracks in your confidence. It is easier to call her shallow than to confront the parts of you still undeveloped, unfocused, and undefined. You are not heartbroken, you are exposed. You are not abandoned, you are challenged. The challenge is not to change her, the challenge is to confront the story you tell yourself when things don't go your way. That story is the cage that keeps you from evolving. The ego would rather invent betrayal than accept that it has not earned loyalty. It would rather claim injustice than admit insignificance. Because to the ego, irrelevance is death, and it will fight to the death to maintain its illusion of control. But truth does not bend to your narrative. The woman who ignores you is not always making a statement. Sometimes she is simply moving forward, not away from you, but towards something more aligned with her values, her rhythm, her vision. That does not make her wrong, that makes her human. You believe you've been targeted, when in fact, you were never the center of her world to begin with. That's a hard truth, but truth liberates those who stop resisting it. The pain you feel is not her fault. It's the echo of your unmet potential, shouting through the silence she leaves behind. Men often confuse attention with affection. They mistake availability for approval. So when those disappear, the ego spirals, searching for someone to blame. But the blame is misdirected. The battlefield is not between you and her, it's within you. She did not break you. You were already cracked, and her absence simply revealed it. She did not make you insecure, she simply did not reassure the parts of you that are still afraid. And that absence of reassurance was never a betrayal, it was an invitation to become solid on your own. The man who projects lives in fiction. He scripts intentions she never spoke. He assumes malice where there was indifference. He invents motives to protect his self-perception. But that self-perception is brittle. It collapses under truth. And only by facing that collapse can something stronger be built. You do not need to be seen to be valuable. You do not need her approval to be whole. But the moment you believe you do, you hand her control over your identity. And that is not her fault. That is your abdication of responsibility. The mature man does not ask why she is ignoring him. He asks what he is ignoring within himself. He does not label her silence as cruelty. He listens for the wisdom within it. He does not accuse her of games. He identifies the patterns in himself that seek validation over integrity. The man ruled by ego is always at war. You cannot control how she feels. Deeper rejection, insult, over your real power. What you can control is you stop. You are not letting because when you when you stop demanding the final step that ego heals and in its place, no truth integrity, even if it burns. Do not seek her gaze, seek the truth. Seek it in your pain, in your rage, in your loneliness. Seek it in your assumptions, in your language, in your silence. And when you find it, everything she did or didn't do will stop defining you. You will stop seeing enemies where there are none. You will stop confusing challenge with attack. You will stop mistaking discomfort for injustice. And you will begin to build a life that does not rely on being understood, but on being whole.